Stories are never just stories. They reveal emotional patterns we also experience in real life. And in this video, we're going to talk about why the people we are drawn to are not random. They echo a part of us, a part of our pain, a part of our experiences, a part of our healing, of our self-awareness. And fairy tale happens to be a very good example of how this works also in real life. I'm going to talk about why fairy tale gathered such a fandom, what it means about the people who were drawn to fairy tale, and why I think fairy tale is a story of hope, belonging, family for people who have abandonment and rejection wounds. Stick around because I'm going to be very honest about how fairy tale impacted me and how much it taught me about myself. Because I was not drawn to fairy tale and obsessed with it without reason. I was the exact type of person fairy tale spoke to. The odds are, if you're here watching this, so are you. We'll get to why. I am sure this is a phenomenon that you have already observed in your real life, but this is still our starting point in this video. So let's talk about how community works and connection works, shall we? Because connection is something that human beings are always seeking out. It's something that we need, really. We're social creatures. We are always trying to find our people. What's really interesting is that the way we choose our people is really not random. It is less so of a choice than we think it is, because the people who are going to be drawn to us are going to be specific people who are going to have something in common with us. Now, this something might be that they share similar life experiences, they share similar values, they share similar pain, they share similar wounds, they share similar healing journeys, or they can share a similar self-awareness. What makes or breaks relationships, connections, and community is how long these similarities stay similar. I'm sure you have experienced this yourself at some point, where you've had a friend for a season. And it's not necessarily because something big happened, but it's more so because it feels like there is less tying you together, you've got less in common, or you're at different stages in life. And that is perfectly normal. With that being said, there is of course, this phenomenon that you can observe for yourself. Now I want to speak a little bit more about how people who share the same pain or same kind of wounds are going to be drawn together. People who are in the same kind of healing journey, or like the same, let's say, have the same progress, are going to be drawn together. And people who have the similar level of self-awareness are drawn together. And the reason why I want to speak about this is because I'm a hypnotherapist and lithotherapist myself. So this is like my lane, so to speak. But what's really interesting is we like people who are similar to us because it's easier to understand them. It's easier to create a bond. So this is like all very normal, regular mechanics. But the thing that is less known, the thing that is a bit more obscure, is that whatever shadow we have, whatever flaw that we have, or whatever thing we don't accept about ourselves, we tend to attract that in others too. So, for example, if you're someone who is struggling with self-love, and this is still very much a wound, whether you're working on it or not, you will be attracting people who are going to take advantage of that lack of self-love. And the reason why this is happening is because the expectations and boundaries when one lacks self-love are going to be different from someone who does not lack self-love. And so the argument about healing, about shifting one's energy, is very much to just attract the people that we want in our lives, because unless we've sorted ourselves first, the likelihood of us encountering people that we want and being able to form relationships with those people and maintain and nurture those relationships is pretty small. For example, what's been really interesting about the friends that I have made, the ones that the relationships that lasted the longest, is that all of the friends that I have had for a significant amount of time have been people who have had wounds that in some way echo mine, specifically around family and family patterns. Once I started working on myself and on the shadow side of me that I wasn't accepting on my own personal flaws, not that I'm done with it, that is something, that I need to keep doing, but once I started actively working on bettering myself, the friends that I had were quote unquote cut in half. Like my friend group that weren't necessarily a friend group that where everyone was friends with each other, but like the friends that I had, now I've got only half of them left. And the reason for that is because we were at very different parts of our own journeys. And while some of my friends did start working on themselves and look into their own patterns and what they were doing, some of my friends weren't doing that. Again, everyone is going to have their own timing, but our timing just didn't align. So, of course, even though we're still cordial and friendly, the depth of the relationship is not there. The reason I'm speaking about all of this and I'm bringing up examples from my own personal life is because fairy tale is very much about what I'm describing. Fairy tale is a home for wounded individuals, and specifically individuals who have experienced rejection and abandonment in some level. And if you know fairy tale, you know that it's on some pretty traumatic level. It's quite they have quite painful backstories. And I'll just mention a couple of characters. Of course, some of them we don't really know their backstory or how they got there, but for one thing, fairy tale was home to many orphans, kids who just did not have anywhere else to go. Fits into what I'm saying about the abandonment. It's a place for people who have nowhere left to go. You also have characters like Mira Jane who have been ostracized for who they were, and fairy tale is a place of acceptance. In a similar way, you have Urza, who suffered from betrayal and abandonment as well, amongst other things. And this fairy tale, this guild, was a place where she was accepted. And she was accepted in spite of what she thought. She didn't think she was going to be allowed in fairy tale, but fairy tale opened the door for her. Again, to keep with the abandonment and the rejection wound, you have got Natsu, whose father, Ignil, adoptive father, granted, but whose father, Ignil, just disappeared. And so he found himself alone and seemingly abandoned by his father figure. But again, he somehow found his way to fairy tale. You have Laxus, who has some complex relationship wounds with both his father and his grandfather. And he felt like his grandfather was being unjust towards his own father. He felt rejected in some way. He felt abandoned by his own father, but he also felt rejected by his grandfather, who was the master of the guild. Like, they all have rejection and abandonment wound in some regard, though they are different and they are expressed in different ways, and the way the characters express and deal with them is very different. I mean, from Mira Jane to Urza to Laxus, it's very different. For example, we also have Lucy, who was abandoned by her father in terms of how much he was involved in her life after her mother passed away. The way Lucy handled this wound and the way Laxus handled this wound, very different. But still, somehow, Lucy found her way into the guild. It's not a coincidence, because that is what made their bond so strong. It's that the fact that the guild opened their arms for them, they were accepted, and the feeling of being accepted just as you are is honestly priceless. It's not something that we really experience easily. Unconditional love should be something that everyone experiences, but the reality is that is not the case. When people feel rejected, or when people feel abandoned by others, whether it be by their family or their peers, there is going to be this specific feeling that they're going to get by watching Fairy Tale, and that was the case for me. I did not make friends easily growing up, and I did have a few friends. What's really interesting about my friend group, especially when I was in middle school, was the fact it was a friend group of people who were rejected by others, mostly. We were kind of the rejects of our peers, and each of us didn't really have that much in common, but by virtue of being excluded by the rest of our peers, we ended up forming our own little group. In the end, it became something really special, and we bonded really well. And I think that's precisely why when I started watching Fairy Tale, and at that time I wasn't really into anime much or at all, but watching Fairy Tale, the first episode, was incredible, because I remember once I started watching it, I was hooked. It's not a coincidence that someone who wanted to be accepted by their peers more than anything, someone who wanted to be seen and to belong, and though I did have this friend group, it wasn't the same, because in a way I still felt very strongly this isolation from others. I never felt that comfortable being myself, and I was really envious, honestly, of Fairy Tale and the characters, in the sense of how they could all be so different in terms of personality, in terms of what they actually did within the guild, and yet you still had this coherence, you still had this feeling of community. I wanted that, and I did have that in some regard, but it's still, when you're used to being the lonely kid, even when you find your own friends, doesn't mean that the friends that you have are the ones that are going to be able to see all of you for who you are. And still, having friends who accept you even though they don't understand you is still pretty good. It's awesome, really. But you still have this feeling of like, I wish I could be seen and accepted for me. And that is, to me, the feeling that Fairy Tale gave up, and why I just loved it so much, and why I was so invested in it. And to this day, I don't think there is anime or manga that I have felt this strongly about, except perhaps when I was watching Kimetsu no Yaiba. I did cry my eyes out watching it, but still, I don't think it beats the feeling of watching Fairy Tale for the first time, or even now watching Fairy Tale and what it does to me. Now, the reason why I specifically wanted to talk about Fairy Tale, other than, Fairy Tale being, to me, a story that was drawing in all of the kids who felt isolated, abandoned, who weren't accepted for who they were, as that is my experience. So this is my theory. Do confirm in the comments if that was you as well. And while all of that is very important and interesting, I chose to talk about Fairy Tale specifically because Fairy Tale was actually my doorway into doing shadow work, inner work, self-work, however you want to call it. And to tell you the story of how it happened was that I started really thinking about why I felt really strongly about certain characters. Because though I enjoy Fairy Tale, I love it, there are some storyline that hit home for me quite hard, or there are certain characters that just spoke to me on a different level, even if their experiences or their storyline wasn't exactly something that I had experienced myself. And I was like, well, that's really interesting, because I wonder why I feel so strongly for this character. I wonder if you guys can guess, before I tell you, which characters I felt really strongly for. To be honest, there are quite a few. In fairy tale, there is a reason why I was drawn to this anime, manga, you know. So there are quite a few characters that spoke to me on a really, really deep level. But who do you think I'm going to mention, and why? There are 3 characters that I really, really identified with. And at first, I didn't really understand why I identified with these characters. I didn't understand why I was pulled towards them so much. But with some perspective, now I definitely know why. It's Gray, Urza, and Lucy. For Urza, it was pretty obvious to me, even at that time, a couple of years ago, when I started really working on myself, why I would feel so strongly for Urza. And it's because in the same way that Urza wore her armor to protect herself, I definitely wore invisible armor myself to protect me from getting hurt. I'm someone who is very emotional, very sensitive, and I've not always been very accepting of that. This wasn't a trait that was accepted by others either. And so I closed myself off when I was a child, because this sensitivity and this emotional side of me would just get me hurt. And I just closed myself off to people. Gray is really similar as well. And for Gray, it was more so that while he appears really cold, he really isn't. And the way he thinks about himself, he's a pretty negative and critical person. At least in the beginning, he definitely was. And that is something that I mirrored, actually. I wasn't very kind to myself. I also was very aloof. And again, it's about protecting oneself. And in the same way that Gray protected himself due to guilt, I also protected myself, and I was aloof and keeping others out in some regard to protect myself, as Urza did, but also on some level because I felt really guilty as well. I don't know if something that some of you guys can relate to, but when I was in school, I was very good, academically speaking. That did not really roll well with my peers. I can tell you that I was isolated a lot and being called a teacher's pet, even though all that I really wanted was to do good at school, because to me, what's the point of going to school if you're not going to be good at it? Which, there's a specific type of mindset, but I would feel really guilty because I had classmates who would try really hard and who would study a lot, and they would not get the grades that they wanted, whereas I could. And I learned this when I was 13, 14. It wasn't the case before. I used to be really stressed about exams, but I learned when I was 13, 14 that it really made no difference whether I tried or not. One time, I just was like, you know what? I'm just not gonna study much and see how it goes. And I got the same grades. I felt really guilty around my peers, and for a long time that I could do well without doing anything at all, whereas they tried so hard. And in a way, closing myself off was both a way to protect myself emotionally, but it was also a way of punishing myself, because I was like, I don't really deserve friends, because like they're trying so hard and I'm not, and yet I'm doing better. And this was something that really took some time to detangle and understand, and where all of this was coming from, which I learned during my hypnotherapy training, because whilst I was trained to be a hypnotherapist, which I'm certified now, I've got my certification right here, I would also train with other trainees. A lot of things around guilt, about accomplishment, about protecting oneself emotionally, about isolating oneself from others came out during that time. And so it made a lot of sense that these characters I felt really strongly for. Now, for Lucy, it was less obvious, kind of like similar to Grey, why I felt strongly for Lucy, because even personality-wise, I couldn't say that there were many similarities, or backstory-wise, I didn't feel like there were many similarities until we got to we got to her relationship with her father. And yeah, daddy issues. So this is where this is what we have in common. And so I wasn't really aware that my father and I have had an estranged kind of relationship until I started doing work on myself. And then I realized how much issues were there, how many things were hidden from me in some cases, and how he kept me at a distance too. And in this regard, Lucy and I were very similar. The sort of absence from one's father, not for the same reasons, was something that I definitely experienced growing up. I just didn't acknowledge it, and I refused to feel this lack of one of my parental figures. And there have been other issues that came from that, but I'm not going to deep dive into this. This is not the topic of the video. But yeah, the reason why I feel so strongly about Fairy Tail, the reason why I want to dedicate the month of August to Fairy Tail as its 20th anniversary, is because this is the manga, this is the anime, this is a story that kind of launched me into personal development, in a work bettering myself, and in a weird, strange, funny way, this is what got me to where I am now, where I'm a hypnotherapist and lithotherapist, working with people to help them through emotional, energetical blocks. So if you want to work with me, or if you're interested in what I could help you with, I do have free 30 minutes consultations, so don't hesitate to check it out. Speaking of free, for my fellow people who have a very active mind, or my people who are stressed and struggle with relaxing, I do have a free self-hypnosis recording to help you relax, wind down, calm your nervous system, and it is in the pinned comment, so you can get that one for free if you're interested. In a really funny, strange way, a Fairy Tail started me on this journey. It was only fair, so to speak, that I dedicate this entire month to it for its 20th anniversary. It is a really good story, and there are very good, interesting characters. Speaking of, next week is going to be about Zeref, and how Zeref's portrayal is actually a very good example of one of the rules of the mind, and it's something really handy to know about and to examine. So do stay tuned for that. You're here after a week after it's published. You probably will get it here in the recommended. So if you're interested in doing shadow work, in doing self-development, in working out why you are stuck in the same patterns, I'm your gal. As I do nowadays for my Sunday videos, I have a closing tradition, which is to pull an oracle card so that you have a message to sit with when you leave. By the way, if I'm not showing you the entire card, it's because the woman on the card is nude. And I don't want any strikes or something for that on YouTube. Not that, I don't even know if it would be like really doing much since my channel isn't monetized, but you never know. Today's oracle card is called Anima. The keywords are earth, desires, insaisissable, which is unseizable. That sounds like a wrong translation. Untangible, maybe. Something along those lines. I am the wild and rebellious woman, the one that incarnates feminine power and softness. I play with the snake symbol of life force. Within me resides the primal energy of Mother Nature, storms, tempests, volcanoes, but also the calm after the rain, the soft, hot sand of the desert, the wonderful perfume of roses, jasmine, and lily. I am the archetype of the woman for certain men. I am whole, generous, loving, strong, soft, warrior-like, and maternal. Do not reject me. Do not sublime, which is to be greater than what it is. Don't make me sound better than I am. Simply learn to know me. Whether you are a man or a woman, this card gives you the occasion to observe the feminine within you and around you that opens you to intuition and dreaming. What place do I occupy in your life? Look at me and let the first word that comes to mind come to you. Now, while reading this, I think that more so than a comment or a message to leave you with, I feel like this one is very targeted at me. I feel like it's very, I mean, it makes sense. I'm the one who is pulling the cards, but this does feel quite personal. As I said, that I struggled accepting the more emotional, softer side of me and being vulnerable or being open. And it's something that I had to work on to get rid of all of those walls and those metaphorical armor, and to be more into my feminine, to be more sensitive, to allow myself to be sensitive, to be more, for lack of better words, girly, even in terms of like appearance and fashion. I mean, you can't really see, I mean, it's like a heart top, which, you know, isn't necessarily the best example, but I do dress very feminine because that is like what I feel most comfortable with, what I like. But I used to be like in trousers and t-shirts because I was hiding myself, and I just felt really uncomfortable about the more feminine aspects of me. So yeah, this feels like it's on point. So yeah, do tell me what you think. This is not a video that is as commentary like. This is more of a softer vibe. So I hope you enjoyed it. Do think to grab the freebie, the self-hypnosis recording, to help you relax, calm down your nervous system. It's always good to have in your pocket or on your phone whenever, if you get like emotionally reactive, you know, it works quite well for that. Or even if you want to train your nervous system, your mind, to quiet down, as that is more so my case because it's very active up here. They're throwing parties all the time. I mean, it's usually positive, but still, it's a lot of noise up here. Yeah, it's always nice to have a moment of quiet and respite. So I hope you're going to use it, because again, it's free, so you can just grab it. And on that note, thank you for making it all the way here, and see you in the next video.